talk is called Hacking DX with React. So I'd like everybody to give a round of applause to Dario and Tom, please.
Yeah. Hi everyone, how you doing?
Thanks a lot. It's good to be here. Thank you very much to Rob, Kian, and Garrett, and Hannah for food as well. That's right. It's good. It's good to have food.
Yeah, thanks everyone really, and thanks for coming around as well. Yeah, so hacking DX with React.
What does it even mean, though?
What does it mean? I don't know. You know. So, right.
I mean, be prepared. This is gonna unveil some really cool, crazy stuff. Before that,
we'll probably tell you a bit about us, so because that's kind of important to what the talk is about. And I'm Dario, but I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm going to talk about Tom because it's easier. And he's actually a UX designer, and he's working in Softco here, consulting from Spain, actually, easy. And
it's a sad story.
So we've been friends for about like 6 years now, and working on, without knowing at the beginning, on this concept for about the last 3. So yeah.
Hi everyone. Dario, let me introduce him very quickly. Engineer at HMH. We started working on panels and pages 3 years ago under umbrella of UX Temple. And we've been just messing around, really. Like, what can you do if you have 2 laptops, bad weather, sheep around? We lived in Galway at the time, so there's nothing really to do. We decided. Oh, sorry, that's sad too.
It's pretty good though.
And we just decided to change the world, like between lunch and dinner. And that's how we started Panels. Panels, it's a alternative to responsive design pipeline. It's just something different, something new, something crazy. Some people call us nuts. Some people love it. So.
Yeah, but Panels is not really the main thing that we want to talk about today. So.
That's right. Sorry, guys. That's true.
We are here to talk about custom and complex applications, not static websites or CMSs, which is something that probably most of you. How many of you are actually building apps? You raise your hand? Yeah, there. Good number. Yeah.
If you can keep your you can keep your hand up for a second. How many of you is working on the product at the moment? Like developers, working on the product. All right, how many of you have ideas? Keep your hands up. But just for a second, please. How many of you have ideas about that product? How to make it work? How to make it your own ideas? How it could work better? How it could look better and stuff like that, right? No one?
Yeah.
No one? All right. So no, keep your hands up. How many of you get to share those ideas with on the meetings or in your business environment, like on the review meetings? How many of you gets to be listened at the table? Few. Still a few hands, all right? Sounds good. Keep your hands up. How many of you get to work on those ideas, on your ideas, with UX designers to make them happen? All right. What I was seeing, I don't know if you were seeing that, but what I was seeing just hands going down. That's what happens. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thanks everyone.
That's what happens today. Right? And that's what we're going to talk about as well later on.
Yeah, so one of those things as well is like that we're going to talk about is collaboration, very important. The last point, how many of you get to do these things with your UX designers and just get through the process and make better things. We're going to talk about around that as well. How do we improve our processes by when doing this teamwork? We'll introduce you one thing that we did called Pages, which is probably the first real tool for team players. Some simplifications we've made along the way, and most importantly, because this is a React meetup, how React enables all of that.
2 notes, that was my slide. I'm supposed to talk about it. Second of all, this is Rob. This is the wrong slide deck. But we're going to roll with this either way. All right. So, I know it's our fault we were sending so many of them.
Yeah.
So current process, it's what we talk about, right? It's what we do today. We as designers, we get the brief. We get to sit with business folks, with our users. We get to brainstorm and come up with all the crazy ideas. We get to wireframe them, test them, do all the bunch of stuff that many of you probably don't get a chance to be part of. Usually, at least that's what we see. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm going to talk bullshit on some point, just say, Tom, no, that's not how it is in our place. I want to talk to you later on how you do it, right? Usually it is in a way that then we bring those wireframes, those UIs to the review meeting. We sit down with you guys, and then the war starts. Right? It's like, no, that's like, no, we can't do this. Like, how do you want to do this? This is crazy. This is nuts. That will take months of time. What are you talking about?
Worst of it all is actually when that goes into an iteration, we start building something, and then you tell them, "Hey, man, hey, you can just go and tweak that CSS there," and they go like, "No way I'm gonna do that." So that's the end of it, essentially. At least for us, I don't know how it works for you, but every time we go say into an iteration and there is a change that has to happen that involves some changes in the UI, some drastic changes. It's really hard really to get those through because there is an architecture setup. There is a bunch of different components that we already did, and changing them takes time, and sometimes just time is not there.
Yeah, and after that kind of tennis ball, match between design and development, what happens is that the expectations are not met. Business analysts. By the way, sorry, how many business analysts we have? Like business folks, not developers, not designers today, and designers. Oh shit. All right. So essentially, what happens is that we get to fight with you guys, right? You get to fight with us. It's all about time, deliverables. It's all about the budgets for business folks. It's about all the dynamics of these two teams within the teams itself, and then between the teams together. So it's a hard to manage process because we are siloed. Because we go off and we do stuff in Illustrator, Photoshop, Axure, bunch of other now thousands of other prototyping frameworks, and we come up with some fake prototypes that supposedly
reflect reality, and they really don't.
Yeah, they look like the real thing, but they're not the real thing. That fake thing we take to our users, we show them, and we try to validate that with that our fake experience, and it never works. I mean, for the data reasons, I can tell you as a UX designer, we can manipulate data in a way that the crazier UX can pass the user testing. So it is on one hand we are siloed as the designers. We do our own thing. You don't have access to it. How many of you know Adobe? How many of you uses Illustrator, Photoshop? Oh, guys, wow. Sketch? Kudos. Okay, so you do that. Do you do that to design, or do you do that to export assets to your apps?
To look at designs.
To look at design. All right. Do you do it to export? Guys, there, you raised the hand.
Design, yeah.
To design as well, yeah. All right, sounds good. So normally it works in the way that we go off and we do our own thing. Then we show it to you, and then we say, okay, take this stuff and make it work, right? And that's how it's. A bunch of you are smiling, but I know this is sarcastic smile. I know it's like it's not a happy, right? It's not a happy feeling, right? And that's why it's broken for us. That's why it feels broken, right? This kind of experience.
And we want to change it. And before at the beginning of the talk it said DX, and you were like, what was that? DX, it generally stands for developer experience, but we want to extend that to the designer as well. Because we are a team, we are not working, separate. We're actually building the same thing at the end of the day. Now somebody's, designing the UI and, building the flows and so on. And then on the other end, we are just putting legs to that, essentially connecting to our data structures and, making it work with whatever services we have and all that kind of stuff. Interestingly enough, that separation of roles is not actually real. We cross quite a lot the boundaries, and we just make things that sometimes we have that idea that we were talking about before. It's like, oh, I can make this work in this way, and we show you actually an example of that later on. And as developers, sometimes we kind of get shut down on that. So here we're going to talk about as well the benefits of teamwork in that. And the main thing is to go here and think how are we going to do it, and more importantly, how you can do it as well within your own teams.
I mean, it is hard, and we try to manage it to implement that in our own teams, and it's tough. because this is not something that people used to. You know, it's a mindset change. That's why we started talking about, instead of talking about showing you code, we started talking about the cultural change and cultural differences that had to happen. But these are the 3 points that will allow you to kind of build a framework around it, this kind of cultural framework. Excuse me. First of all, you need to have the same terminology around the things with designers, between designers and developers. Right now, we designers call, if we see it 2 elements with a bunch of empty space, we call it space.
And we call
between
it
ourselves.
margin and padding.
Right? You call it
that kind of stuff.
You have also padding. I mean, that's crazy. That's nuts. You have margin and padding, right? It's nuts. But this is, for us, we need to understand that. We need to know how things work to be able to have a conversation with you, right?
Then we need to work on the same environment. That's also very important. You know, right now, if you have, say, a platform like whatever it is, Illustrator, InVision, whatever that is, that designers go and do their thing, we can't actually get that and convert it into real code. We can tweak it ourselves and help them make it better. So we definitely need to work on the same environment. And how do we do all of that as well? The last point is very important. It's the culture of collaboration. We need to learn together to help each other. And that's something that sometimes, because of deadlines and whatever it is, it just gets a little bit pushed off the way. And we are just not like sort of allowed to go and help, you know, one of our teammates, because it's like, oh, there is no other time. So
especially between the teams, right? So because I mean, we're not talking about developer to developer. We're not talking designer to designer. I would go and I would say, if I have a junior designer working with me, I could say, how can I help you to deliver that layout? How can I help you to finish that mock-up? You would do the same with your team of developers.
Yeah.
Now, it wouldn't happen between development and design. You know, no one would ever even try to ask me, hey, Tom, how can I help you deliver that prototype? It's just, this is your thing. Just go and do your stuff. I don't care. Right? And the same, when I throw the ball to Dario, at the end of the day, it's the same thing on his side. Is, you know, you do it your own, by yourself, and try to figure it out.
So this is the point where we introduce places on the blue slide. And as we said before, this is the first tool for team players. So now we're going to show you some code. You'll see a few things. At the end of it, we'll do some questions. The idea is to show you generally what our workflow is and how do we work on these things and how we are able to convert all of those ideas into UIs and then go from that UI to real code.
And by the way, this is not a product kind of presentation. I mean, we're not selling this. This is open source. You can contribute. You can fork. You can make it your own. This is for us to show you how we work, right? So you can see how that could be. I mean, if that could work you can assess if that could work in your team.
And this is Pages, an empty page. Here we have an editor. I just want to explain you a few basics so we get to talk the same language, which is one of those important points. When we said before with panels, we talked before that we made a few simplifications, right, to the process. So we decided that we were going to define our pages in 360 panels. That's what we did. There were a few reasons for that. One of the most important probably is that responsive design is really hard, and trying to achieve that level of compatibility across devices is pretty much impossible at some point. And it just drains a lot of energy and time that you can put on something else. So just to probably give you a bit of a thing, I'm going to do what every developer does and puts it on red. So
it's a beautiful red, Dario.
That's amazing, yeah. So
I like it.
So that's really a panel, right? It's just that thing that you're seeing here, and the editor that you see is another panel here as well. And then we also have a concept of blocks. Blocks are just things that stack on top of each other, as if you're playing Tetris, but when you reach the end, they don't disappear. So, right. So then, you know, like just to show you really that this actually has a bit of a boundary, we can give it a bit of a background. Since you're I put it red again because why not? So, so that's a block really, and these are our construction units, and this is how we interoperate. We work together on this code, this JSON in this case, and we work it. If you are, you know, how many of you actually use React or are, you know, familiar or have played with it already? Can you raise your hands? Or all right, that's a good few, yeah. Good. So if you see this, you will see certain similarities. A block is actually a React component encapsulated in the JSON syntax. We actually have a block that defines the component that we are using. In this case, it's a text. And then we have the props that we pass into that. And that's, again, just an object. You can see that here in real code, and you can see that it's pretty much the same thing. It's like, the code, I have my style, I have my margin, the background that I set, and the text. That's about it.
No, he went to it like he just clicked this colorful button here, and it just was. I mean, to me, it's still magic. That's what happened here now, right? Because I mean, it is magic to me in general. But the fact that I can do this with a simple CSS, this is what I need to learn, right? As a designer, I can go to that extent, right? I can learn CSS. I can use CSS to tweak these JSX properties. I mean, this is not a CSS, this is JSX, but it's pretty much the same thing, really well documented. You can do whatever I can do whatever I want, right, with this. As a designer, right? As a designer. Right? So now what happens is that Dario comes in, clicks the magic button, and then this happens.
Yeah, so this is what we call morph. And essentially is, okay, at some point we need to turn that into a real thing, which, is something that we can actually use. And that is that React code. Now, I know what you may all be thinking is like, oh yeah, I've seen all those tools that generate all these magical things and so on, and I'm not going to use code that somebody else generated for me automatically. And you're totally right. That's not the way. Because the problem is that we found with all these automatic tools is that they actually generate code that we can't use as developers. Because it's code that generally is very unperformant and has a lot of tricks that the people did for whatever platform they were targeting. So the code that you generate here is code that belongs to you. And we show you actually that with an example. So Tom is working on this thing here that is some sort of e-commerce that he's doing, and he did this himself. So you probably want to walk them through it.
Yeah, that's the when I would come in here, I would come into blocks, and I would do all that craziness that to any normal designer that seems like just nuts, right? Because there's loads of lines of code and keys and whatever. This is actually very simple. This is like we introduce few little simplifications for designers to kind of get it easier, like horizontal and vertical, which is just a flexbox with the assign row direction by default. But it's easier for me to think of a horizontal structure as a set of horizontal boxes and elements sitting next to each other. So that's why we did this. But I would do that myself, create all these blocks. I would go manually copy block after block, card after card. So as you see, there's another card coming, which is just this one, right? So I would do these cards one after the other, and then Dario comes in because we're working in the same environment. So we together work on the same panel, right? This is the panel that we're working on. So that's the panel. That's the view of the app, essentially, final view of the app.
So I see that and I realize that Tom is trying to do something that is going to be repeated across times, and that's something that we all do every now and then. Like we have, say, a list of something that is coming from a service, whatever that is, and we just need to iterate through it. Now what he did there is what most designers do. They go to Illustrator, they copy paste a thing, and then paste it below, and then change the value, and then it looks a bit different, and then you feel that that's a list, right? Everyone knows that just doesn't work like that in development. So I just went ahead and said, all right, so I'm going to help you out with that, and we're going to put this together in a structure that we can consume as developers. But the first thing that I did is I said, all right, mate, you know what? That's mental. You can't go and do all that structure. You're going to be using that quite a lot. So we need to simplify it and abstract it away. And that's when we created this custom block. And custom blocks, you can probably all read that. That's React. And it's a very simple React. And it's pretty much a translation one-to-one from what he did in this case. But here's the point. And here's when React helps us quite a lot in doing this. We agreed on a contract. We said, all right, so you want to use these. You don't really care about the internals. So seeing, is this like some element that is next to this number, and then they sort of go stacked horizontally, or he doesn't really want to know that, or the fact that when you click the number, that goes ahead and triggers a like on that particular element. So on the other hand, what we can establish though is that I want to like to tweak the color.
Yeah, I want to tweak the color, I want to tweak the animation, I want to tweak the fill of that, maybe margins. Somewhere on the way when we're going to test that later on, because this becomes real application, when I'm going to test that real experience, not the prototype fake experience, I'll notice that I need more margin, I need less space, more space. I need a share. I'm missing share button here, right? Maybe I need to put share button here. To me, it's literally 10 minutes to put that share button, or to ask Dario, we need another set of another iteration of that component with the like button, with the share button here, which he would just create another custom block for me.
And there is an interesting thing that happens here. Once our designers start seeing this, they start learning the structure, and then they can go and help us. In this case, this card is already like transformed to the full React component. So what I've done here is I literally just converted that block and I used the card, and I gave him access to his data structure and all that.
And this is like 5 lines of code where now I can put into props of that card. I can put into props. We can put style here, and in that style I can call all the styles that if you could, Dario, go to.
So this demo that I have here, for instance, doesn't have all the lot. So for instance, right, I can go ahead and grab his card and just literally put it in. And that's a card. In this case, it's using the same image. And why is that? Because the image was hard-coded on the default props. We are actually exploring React quite to an extent here by setting those default props, so you can actually use that as the initial block that the designer will use. But I don't really want that, so in this case what I can do is, because this is actually an iteration, I can go ahead and iterate over my elements and just append the data like that.
So what happened here as well, for us designers, normally what we would have to do, and for you guys who use Illustrator, you know that you would need to go and copy the image from somewhere and then place it into your layout, then put a mask around it, clip it, position it, right? Here I can use a service and I can pass all the images that I have that might be, or that I might already have in my, I don't know, like a book collection, for example, that we're working on, and it's a new version of the old product. I have all the covers. They are on the service type. I just passing all the covers and I have it there. I don't have to, manually copy paste and so on. So for designer, this is again magic. This is like, that saved me 3 hours of just copying and pasting like a monkey. Right?
And the interesting bit about this is that, we want to use that later, right? So again, morph. And in this case, we are morphing away our card, and the list is what we'll probably do in React. We will just be iterating and mapping and returning elements and just, spitting that back. And like here we are working with some data source of some kind. And in this case, we are expecting this component to get a prop called cards, and that will have items, and those items will potentially have things like shares or amount of likes and all that sort of stuff that we can connect with. So going back to the previous talk, when he was talking about the connect and all that, that's when you would introduce something probably like Redux or whatever that is to bring in your information, connect it to this panel. And the interesting bit about it is that because React makes it very simple as well, is you feed this thing cards, an array, and it will always render whatever the view defined. So what we literally do is replace the whole code that we get here for our view in our code, and boom, we have a new UI.
Now that doesn't have to be, panels are not restricted to 360. You can change the width of the panel and you can still create responsive flows for your responsive websites if you want, like whatever size you want to go for in this panel, and you can just design it to whatever extent you want. But if you could go to custom blocks and just quickly, I don't know if do we bore you now at this point? Did we lose you? Are you with us? The edit, yeah. If you could show the styles that we so. What we would do, we go to the extent of collaboration between us because we talk the same language now. So I know now, I understand what the style is. I understand what the prop is. I understand where should I put it and how should I use it. So now I say, what I want to tweak is the style of this HUD. I don't care about the style of this because that won't have any state. And I want to change the style of this button, right? All of that is being, by Dario, he exposes all those styles to me. So now when I call those styles in my JSON, when I use the cards, if you can scroll to the side, if I use this custom component, not the one that I built manually by myself, but the one that is custom, I can now have all those styles here, and I can do, again, custom stuff with it, whatever I want. Doesn't really matter what I want to do with it, right? Again, power of JSX. So to me, this is just amazing. As a designer, right? We don't have many other designers. They would be fading out here now. I could assume, because this is unseen. This is nothing like we deal with as designers. Right now, all of that work has to happen manually by dragging. For those who don't use Illustrator, if I want to use the mask, I would have 4 points here in case of rectangle. And I would need to select 2 points manually. And I would need to drag them down 5 pixels down if I want to make this image bigger. And I want to do it for each cut in this layout. And then I need to do it for each layout in this mockup. And then I need to update all the mockups in this dummy, amazing, InVision, whatever we call it, click-through. Right?
And then we see that it's actually like 217 pixels long. So.
And then it's wrong. And then it's wrong. And then someone comes back and says, what is this? Why this image is rectangular? We said it's going to be square. Fuck. Right? That's what happens. So here I come in, and it's just it's a magical change. I update one number, and it's changed. Right?
So this is Pages. It's what from what we've seen so far is probably the first tool for team players that would really like to collaborate and build applications together. Now this is open source. You can go ahead and grab it. We have the URL somewhere there. This is the questions part. We got a bit of interest from some people, so we're running a workshop on Thursday. So if you're interested, there's the URL. You're more than welcome. It's just a couple of blocks down the road. You can try it yourself. You can go to any subdomain that uses pages.com. HTTPS work as well. We are on Twitter, and we don't have the URL for the page because it was on a different presentation. And it's usepages.today. So you can just go to it. You can probably put it here, and it will appear.
Yeah, if you want to join us for the workshop, if you have designers in your team that you would like to join us there, we will be working on an idea. I mean,
it's going to be hands-on. That's the idea, just so that we get a feeling of what this is. We started using this. We are starting to use this flow with some of the ads there in HMH. And the idea is like, okay, let's just break those silos that we used to have with designers and stop working separated and start working together, so we can deliver better applications and be happier while we do it.
We planned the hag at the end of the talk, but that kind of
we make the microphone slash, all of that.
So no, we skipped the hag there, right?
Anyways, I don't know if you have any questions. Yeah, that's about it.
Any questions? Any questions for Dario and Tom? No?
You're using this then in HTML? Sorry.
We are starting to use it now. Essentially, like the concept of panels, which is a runtime that allows you to run all those things, and we'll be designing together with designers on the editor on Pages. And yeah, we are using it ourselves. So Pages is built with that, and we are working on a few other things that are
whatever you saw in Pages, editors,
is built on Pages.
All the stuff is built in Pages as well.
Yeah. So we can change it, and it's actually really it's just really fast for us to work with.
It's a very fast workflow because I get to do the design myself. I have a pass. If you could maybe, do we have time or not?
Yeah, a few minutes.
We were talking about this idea of you guys have some ideas how to make things work better. You see some UX patterns that maybe would work better than your UX designers were using, but you're not really part of that conversation, so it's very hard to introduce that, right? Sometimes. Great example yesterday. We were working on this, preparing this demo for you today, and little functionality put in blocks. Before, what we had to do, there was like a copy to clipboard button that you could copy the code of that custom block, and then you would have to go here, click it, right, and then once the cursor is here, you need to position it where you want to have the block. Now you just need to paste it, right? Not so bad, right? My idea. But then this guy came up, right? Engineer, UX idea. One click, right? Wherever you are, doesn't matter where you are. One click puts that card into blocks, right? Because he can do it. I mean, he knows how to do it, right? So normally, stuff like this in products, I don't know, maybe in your environment it's different. In normal enterprise environment does not exist, right? And this is the change that this kind of way of thinking, because we don't want to talk about like pages per se. This is only one product. You can take it, you can change it, you can make it yours if you want, call it whatever you want. But it's the change in the behavior, in the culture of how we talk each other together, how we respect each other ideas, and how we can make our products better, essentially, because that's what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Two questions. I'll merge them into one. So how couple is this to React? Can you morph it to any other framework?
You could, yeah, if you want to. I mean, the morph is literally like a string interpolation, and it just iterates through the blocks. And as long as you have a counterpart of whatever you're working with, is current. Like the idea, which we're still to try with this, is we'll put this in practice with React Native as well, and it should just work in all fairness, because there is no difference essentially from the components themselves. Now, if you wanna fit it into Angular or Backbone or whatever that is, or even just raw like HTML, you can also do it. It's not yeah.
And the next question would be, can you be confident to use just the definition of JSON as a source code of your app?
You could.
Everything else is generated from just as a skeleton that you.
Yeah, you could, but the problem is that you run in a performance penalty, because you need to iterate through the JSON every time, match it to some sort of source of components, and then render that. So say, because that's really what Pages does underneath, right?
I'm not saying at runtime, but in storing it as the source code that they generate the rest.
You could, yeah, you could as well, yeah. Mm-hmm. The problem is that once you do that, you took it away from the environment that you both share, so you sort of lose the collaboration. Yeah. The point as well, sorry, on that as well, the morph component. Right now, we're working with this concept of copy pasting, but that's not going to be like that for long. I mean, we're going to integrate it so that it's continuously stepping on your files, and it just literally goes to your views, and you just connect it and you forget about it.
So the question was, what's the process for developers after these?
Right. So what we generally do is we grab that morph code, and for now we are copying and pasting it, put it into a file, and then we would have outside of that. I can probably show you on Pages something.
And by the way, guys, if you feel that this is something that you could make better, please contribute. Right, all the morphs that we were working on, all those like we were talking about npm package, some sort of way that you can just package all of that and then without copying and pasting, and have it continuously working in your environment.
So Pages, for instance, right? Just to show you one thing. So we did the onboarding process. When you go to like an empty app, you will see. Hopefully, when this comes up, you will see this, right? And this is like you literally go there, and this is the flow that we define with Tom, and you have like.
I developed that.
Yeah, he actually did that. Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, that was amazing to me.
And at the beginning, it was amazing because we didn't have an input component, and he literally faked this with like something else that he had, and I was like, "Oh, poor Tom, I'm gonna make an input for you." And there you go, we had. Some interesting thing about this is that now that looks like deja vu is not. So here, if I remember my password, tends to happen, right? It may just work. So what we did here was a couple of things, which is say when we go deeper into applications, say states, right? How do we deal with those, and how can a designer actually design those? So simple things: login failed, we don't know you. Login loading, we are doing that thing. Nice thing that is showing up. Sign up, the form swaps. It shows you confirm your password, and the gibberish around it changes as well. Same thing with this and that. All of this stuff is morphable, and you can just that's where it exists at all. Anyways, you can just grab it and paste it and so on. And what we've done here, if you come around to the open source, you would see something that whenever I'm about to show a page, I have a few different states that it could potentially show. It could be either loading. It could be that the page is actually, the application is completely new and I should onboard you. Or it could be that the page doesn't exist. You could create it, or I could actually have a page and I would render it, right? So these three components here are actually created with Pages. And they all came out of like somewhere around there. And you can see their code that is just pretty much the same morph code from here. Has changed a bit ever since. And then we would have, say, back to our component, again, what you would have seen on the previous talk, a connect from Redux, we would have some map state to props, certain data that we pass in. So I can literally go ahead, grab this onboarding, create, loading, swap them, forget about it. He changes the UI, I don't care. We have a contract. I told you I was going to pass you this prop. To have that prop in, it will work.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is that I can actually do those states myself. And usually I don't have to, because I don't know how it works in your environment, but all these errors and all of that stuff is kind of the afterthought in big projects. It's like, but what do we do with this error? If I'm going to have that error there, what's going to happen? Well, there's a state. It's going to put another block there. It's fine, right? And it's that simple. To me, it's just, it's again that simple, right? And I can see it. I can preview it. It has on clicks, hover overs, all the animations I can do, all the transformations I can do, transitions, anything my designer mind can come up with. Just not that many things, but.
It doesn't bring a lot of duplication as well. Like, I can see it work for React Native as you told, because you have to inline all your styles. But otherwise, for each component, maybe duplicate all your styles.
There is it depends really on how you work things out. Like we've been doing inline styles for a long while, and in HMH we actually use CSS, but local. There are pros and cons to both. I would say for us, inline styles just makes it easier to reason about. And what I found is that I rather prefer that because he can look at it and change it rather than putting it somewhere else where it means like, they have to look at a different file, a different thing. It just means like this context switching constantly. So again, it's that part of how can we help each other, how can we make it better for the other part, and sometimes we compromise a bit on those things. It doesn't really have a huge impact in anything else. When we need, say, like a hover, we've done some, sometimes some internal, inline styles, or we've even done at some point, say on hover and that kind of stuff, like event handlers.
I mean, the more I must say, the more I'm getting into this, the more I understand what is the prop, how does it work, what is the style, how to use it. The more he can do it, the more he can pull towards engineering, right? Because this is flexible. This is not set. This is not this is not what you get is what you see is what you get kind of type of environment, right? You can pull it to whatever you want, as far as your designers understand. Oh, so that's what I need to do. Okay, fine. So that it depends on this team dynamic.
What's the panels project you mentioned at the beginning?
Yeah, so panels is this runtime. It's literally when you see these things like here, say, I don't know, you see this here, right? For instance, that's 3 panels in their runtime itself, right? And really, I don't know if you see this here, it's like you're seeing one URL, another one on it. Probably like browser vendors are going to kill us, but essentially we just figured that life is too short to go to a separate tab, and we just need to work it out in context. So we created panels to just create a whole lot of experiences that don't exist yet, and one of those is this one here.
So right now what happens, panels is a new browsing pattern, essentially, that we, alternative to responsive. Responsive goes, adapts to your screen size, and then just when you trigger a new link, you go to a new tab usually, right, or new window. Here you can have many different panels stacked next to each other, depending on how sane or insane you want to go, right? And how your users can take that input. But this works across all the platforms, right? So you can imagine that this, if you don't make the panel too wide, you're going to get the same layout on mobile, you're going to get the same layout on tablet, and it works across all the screen sizes the same way. Now, from the UX perspective, that breaks everything we know, but it also introduces really interesting thing that users don't have to relearn patterns from device to device. So I don't know if you've got that on some of your apps that you're using, but you go to desktop, it's a totally different experience. You go to the mobile, it's like, where's that? Where was that? And then you're trying to tap different buttons, different, like ellipses, 3 dots, 2 dots here, 3 dots there to find that thing, because it's a totally different experience, right? So here we were. I mean, there were 2 reasons. One is this. There's this that users don't have to relearn the UI, and another one is that we don't have to develop it, right? Because we were working as consultants, and for us it was just nuts to do all those, like essentially redevelop app 3 times or 4 times because it has to have a totally different experience.
And the interesting bit that you get on desktop or anything that can support more than one panel at a time is that you get this context and this trail. That on mobile you can get it anyways, but in here you can actually get it.
Maybe Polo Mondial? Polo Mondial?
Yeah.
Because there's few use cases that it probably works really well, and few use cases that it probably doesn't work at all,
it's not.
right? So,
No, it's gone.
I was going right. So there is this idea of now you need to turn on your imagination. Now I got to challenge you a little bit, right? So if you have a list of things, right? You can imagine that, or GCI. Yeah. So so if you have a list of things, you can move from panel to panel, from list to list, seeing the trace, seeing the flow of where you are.
So this is one of the very first implementations of panels itself.
This is one of the first apps to kind of
and you could book a course, right? And that was the idea that we tried to do with it. So essentially, you get all this experience, and you can go ahead and just book your course and sort of let you move through it, very easily and so on and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So these are now, again, that might work for some apps, might not work for others, but you can. As well, you can do what right now you can do. We couldn't do it here, but right now what you can do, you can vary the size of the panel. So you can introduce a tool set if you want, and you can develop a totally different experience if that's what you desire, right? So in the pure format, panels are contextual. So I can easily, if I don't like what I see, I can easily go back a step and browse this and scroll this panel and go back and choose another option from whatever options these are, whatever is on the list, right? Does it make sense? That was the idea. That's the kind of simplification of the whole responsive pipeline. I mean, maybe not for the final product, for final production, because your business folks might just go nuts. It's like manager comes in, it's like, what the hell is this now, right? But for the prototyping thing, this is so quick and it's so fast. You can just spin it up in a matter of hours.
Now, interestingly enough, because those are React components, you're not limited again to using it within panels. That's why we don't really make much an emphasis on it, really, because you can use it within panels or you can use it outside. It's up to you. On Thursday we're actually going to be running on to how to set up panels if you want to go down that path, anyways.
And you could take that.
No fun.
Yeah.
Shut up, Tom. All right, no, sounds good. I can stand here for another hour,
I know.
Rob.
I know. You can stay around for a
No,
while.
guys,
We'll sit around and people come up to
that's okay.
Yeah, we're just gonna mingle. Yeah, sounds
Perfect.
good.
Okay, guys, thanks a million for coming.
Thank you very much.
We hope
Thanks
you get
for
to the
the
next one. We're always on the lookout for speakers, so if you're using React at the moment and you want to speak or you have a vague idea you want to talk about, please come back to us and we can set you up with a talk, like 20, 25 minutes, whatever it is. Okay, thanks a million. See you later.